Hey, what's up, good people? It's Jay Ray, the co host of Q Points, and I wanted to come to you because there are two really important ways that you can support our show. One is by subscribing to it wherever you listen to or watch your podcasts. Q Points is pretty much everywhere. The other thing that you can do is you can visit us on Apple Podcasts, on Spotify, and on Podchaser, and you can leave us a star rating. Please rate us 5 stars because you know you love Q Points. And on Apple Podcasts and on Podchaser, you can actually leave us a written review. It's not required, but it really does help to spread the word about the show, and it helps people to discover it as they're looking for new podcasts to listen to. We're always appreciative of you supporting Q Points. We thank you so much for all that you've done for us so far, and enjoy the show.
Yes, welcome back. It's been a minute, but this is Q Points with your host. I am DJ Sir Daniel.
And my name is Jay Ray, sometimes known by my government as Johnny Ray Cornegay the Third. What's happening, people?
Listen, you are tuned in to Q Points, officially dropping the needle on Black music history. Listen, Jay Ray, let's just cut to it. The holidays are upon us. Yes, let's just cut to it. How you feel? I was just about to say, how are you feeling?
So,
is that a little holiday cheer in that cup?
There's a little holiday cheer in this cup. So, folks, we have not been live like this since September. So, and it's the holiday. So, I brought me a little eggnog. I spiked it with a little rum. It's a lot of rum in here.
You know.
And so I'm feeling good. Sir Daniel, how are you feeling?
I'm feeling excellent. We closed up shop early today because of the holiday. So I was able to run down to one of my favorite places to go hang out, Little 5 Points. And I ran into the people of Dope Coffee. And I finally got my hands on some of their iced coffee, which is infused with spinach, which you can't really tell. But I'm enjoying this experience. So I don't have the holiday cheer in there, wink, wink, but it's giving me the a little pep in my step so that we could talk about all the stuff that we need to catch up on, all the things that Black Friday is coming up, so people need to go shopping. And so, when it comes to shopping, Q Points got you.
We got you.
Merchandise that they can get their hands on, J Ray.
So check it, y'all. Y'all know. Well, before we even get into this, we gonna do a first up. Shout out to Something Severe, who is our Insiders Max member. Trey has been here since day one. One, and has been such a huge supporter of the show and is now an Insiders Max member. So one of the things that you can do, in addition to buying products, is you can subscribe to Q Points. And we highly encourage you to do that because we got exclusive shows back there. We got the entire archive of Q Points, which you can't see anywhere else but on our website. You can listen everywhere, but you can't see us. But if you go to our website, you can. So all of that's back there. So if you become a member, you have access to it. So you can do that. Okay, them products. So you see how Sir Daniel got that fly Q Points shirt on, that right there? You can own one yourself if you go to our store. If you visit store.qpoints.com, you could check out all of our merch. We got shirts, we got hoodies, we got, for y'all DJs, we got slip mats, yo. You got one. You got DJ Sir Daniel got one.
Listen, I'm right here. It's right here in front of me.
What?
It's so dope. It's so dope. And y'all, for those of you who are going to be in tune to my upcoming live broadcast when I DJ live, you will see the slip mats in action. It's beautiful. They do what they need to do and they look good. It just pops out at you. So I'm really proud of, what we got going on here on Q Points. And again, shout out to Trey, Something Severe, for always holding us down. Things like that are what make community, and Q Points is a community. And before we go any further, I want to shout out to another member of the Q Points community. I want to shout out J Ray. I want to shout out J Ray
Well, thank you.
because so you guys, J Ray just did has an article featured in the Atlanta Journal Constitution, and it was a very touching article because it dealt with the issue that a lot of people don't think about, and that's what do students do during the holidays.
Yep.
Now, I work. Some people may know that I work with the homeless people who are experiencing homelessness, and a lot of times, a lot of those people are students because during the holidays, if the campus doesn't allow you to stay on site, then you have to go. You may or may not have somewhere to go. And there's lots of reasons why people may or may not have somewhere to go, because their family doesn't accept them, which is a huge reason, or you just can't afford it. So I think that the article is about creating community to answer those issues about food insecurity and possible homelessness and just loneliness during the holidays. So shout out to you, J Ray, for spotlighting those fascinating young people down there at the AUC, making some things happen for the students. If you want to check it out, please go look on J Ray's socials. He has links to the article. It's a great read. It'll make you feel like doing something special for other people and not just thinking about yourself during the holiday, which is what it's all about.
Man, thank you. I did not know you were going to do that. So thank you, Sir Daniel, for doing that. And yes, I'm incredibly grateful. So I actually wrote that piece for CNPs, or the Counter Narrative Projects, The Reckoning, and we have a partnership with the AJC. And so we typically will send them all the newest articles and say, hey, if there's something you like. And they selected that one. They were like, oh, we can use this AUC Thanksgiving article. And I was like, what? So, just knowing that, my advice to folks is you can use your voice in many ways. And I was so happy to be able to tell that story of those young people. And so thanks, man, for shouting me out. And we got to shout out a couple more people. So shout out to Matthew, who is in the chat, and shout out to Wani, who's one of our day ones, who is also in the chat. We love it. And yes, y'all, we are live. So we're able to talk to you. It's been a while.
very, very much live. Very much glad to be here. And again, Q Points is a community, and we're thinking about all the communities outside of Q Points that are going through it. Our thoughts and prayers are with the families of the victims of the Colorado nightclub shooting, which J Ray, you and I have discussed ad nauseum. Unfortunately, the country continues to have this discussion ad nauseum.
Yep.
And but not
This
even
morning,
48 hours after that, there's another shooting at a Walmart in Chesapeake, Virginia. And so, information is still coming in about that. That involved employees. Everybody listen. Here's my 2 cents. And I think I may have shared this before, but I've been trying to live by a motto that has become my mantra. My mantra is get grace in space. I know a lot of times when we go out in the world, sometimes we may not be in the best place. We don't know what place other people are in. And so I try to live by the mantra, grace in space. Try and give people just a little bit of grace and give them some space. Give yourself some space if you need to, because we just don't know what people are going through. You don't know what kind of encounter can trigger somebody. So aside from keeping your head on a swivel, please be safe out there. But when we encounter each other, let's just try and have a little grace for each other so that we can stay alive, basically.
Yes. Nah, and so Sir Daniel and we talked about Club Q on However Comma, which is our members only show, and really dug into it. So if you want to really get into what we think, Definitely check that out. But I will echo what you said about the grace and space, Sir Daniel. And I think also from a policy perspective, we have to figure out this gun thing, this gun problem that is so unique. It as to your point, you said on Monday on however comma, it's as American as apple pie.
Yep.
And this is not it. This is not it. And yeah, we so definitely sending from Q Points love out to the families in Colorado from Club Q, as well as the families of the victims in Virginia today. And yeah, policy wise, we got to figure it out. We got to elect folks that are going to figure this out. And Raphael, who just jumped in the chat, uh, has a lot of really interesting thoughts around this as well. Making sure that you check out Raphael's uh, uh, um, podcast called White Label American, which is super dope as well. So shout out to Raphael and White Label American.
It's so funny, like this holiday that we're about to celebrate was built on violence. It was built on, established on violence, on taking away the lands and the property of indigenous people. But we don't want to dwell on that. It's already, like we said earlier, it's already difficult during the holidays for a lot of people. And what we want to do in this moment that you're with us here at Q Points is just to, lighten up the mood a little bit. We're going to talk some music. We got some friends that we're reconnecting with. And it's Thanksgiving. What I like about the idea of Thanksgiving is having gratitude. And I'm super grateful to have a partner in you, J. Ray, because when we started this podcast, we not only do we take a different approach on how we wanted to, talk about the things that we talk about on here, but we've been very intentional about how we do business, because
absolutely,
Q Point is a business and we're treating it as such because, ladies and gentlemen, while J. Ray was on one of his trips down here in Atlanta, he and I met up and we had an official Q Points signing party because, in the words of the immortal Sean Carter, I'm not a businessman. I'm a businessman. Okay, sorry. I had to do it.
Yo, so excited. Like, from a podcast perspective, this podcast is our business. This is me and Sir Daniel. We are business partners in this business. We actually got paperwork to prove it now, right? And we have to treat the things that we love with the respect they deserve. And Q Points absolutely deserves all of our attention. And one of the things that we had to do was to formalize Q Points. So Q Points LLC is real. And thank y'all so much for making sure that we could make this possible. It's with your support, it's with your work, it's with your telling other people about the show that we are able to do this. And so, yeah, congratulations, Sir Daniel. We done made it to another thing.
I'm telling you, we're up to 79 shows. We've got our LLC signed. I mean, things couldn't be better. I think things couldn't be better for us, Q Points, and for, like you said, our supporters who keep in contact with us on the social medias. And regardless of what's happening out there, regardless of the dumpster fire that Twitter is right now, we are going to keep in contact with you guys because, without you, there's no us. I hate to sound corny, but it's true. Without you, there is no us. But, indeed, Twitter is a dumpster fire right now. It reminds me of those. It reminds me of those evangelical movies about being left behind.
Yes.
Those end of days movies, the second coming movies, where what are we gonna do? People are running around. They're making all kinds of hot takes about who should be on here, who should be on this platform. People are allowed to come back that probably don't need another platform. It's really crazy out here, Jerry. And you are relatively not new to it, but You
Yeah.
don't really play on the Twitter streets like that.
I didn't start playing on the Twitter streets. We talked about this too on However Comma. So we really got into Twitter. And if you want to know one of the things that me and Sir Daniel got in our email from Twitter, you need to go watch that show. For real. Like, it's crazy. Go watch However Comma. Anyway, I didn't start playing in these Twitter streets until we started Q Points for real. I had always had an account, but I hadn't really like leaned into it. And then I started loving on Twitter. And then I'm like, oh shoot, this is horrible.
Yeah. It's wild. But like you said, I really think people really need to get into the things that we chatted about on However Comma.
Mm-hmm.
So However Comma, what you need to do is subscribe so you can check out that show, because you think we let loose here, we really let loose on However Comma. J Ray be cussing and stuff. You probably wouldn't even recognize J Ray, that other side of J Ray.
Listen, there's no filters when it's behind the wall, because it's just us talking. It's just us.
Listen, it's just me and you talking, right? Okay. And so, the thing about the socials, the social medias, the different platforms, like Twitter has spaces and places where people can get on and talk that talk, right? Including, a lot of celebs, a lot of rap artists. I'm putting up my bunny ears, rap artists.
They be rap artists, Sir Daniel.
Okay, that's what they do. They, and most recently, it seems like, just recently, 21 Savage, defended his guffaw and claimed that he really wasn't talking that talk about Nas. And then most recently, NBA YoungBoy was quoted as saying, "Jay-Z can't out-rap me." Now, here's the thing. What's going to happen is, and people have to know this, when you make kind of inflammatory statements like that, no matter what your definition is or what your explanation is after that, they're only going to take that one little piece and run with it. Yep. So now it's NBA YoungBoy is labeled as saying he got more bars than Jay-Z, and he can out rap Jay-Z, which is a very questionable statement on behalf of that young man.
Yes. So here's the thing. What we know about, I think if we put it all in context, right? Rap, hip hop, particularly rappers themselves, but the culture as a whole, in a lot of ways, and we've talked about this on, in fact, the last few shows, talking greasy, being braggadocious, saying you're the best is important for a rapper, right?
Yeah.
And we also, I think this is one of those situations where you have to be mindful of exactly what you're saying. It's kind of the same thing that I felt with 21. I didn't think what 21, when you looked at the context of what he was saying, I get where he was coming from. It's just like, those weren't exactly the right words in the right formation that you want to do. Because I don't know about the statement of Jay-Z, Jay-Z can't out rap him. I don't know the validity of that. I don't know.
Listen, NBA young man, I think you just keep living and keep striving. That's what I'll say. NBA young man, you keep striving until your generation may in fact call him the Jay-Z of his generation.
Yep. And like Raphael said in the thing, he remembers one period where everybody claimed to be the king of New York. Exactly. It was just kind of a thing. Like, but this is like when you start putting people names in there, you be like, okay, now you got us making comparisons. Right.
And you know what? I'll say this. So years ago when I was working in radio, somebody gave me some really good advice because I went in to talk to a program director because I really wanted a job at this radio station. And when I went in to talk to the program director, one of the first things I started doing was comparing myself to other people that were working there and naming them by name, and was saying, well, I can do this better than so and so, and I can do this better than so and so. And I left that meeting thinking, oh, I got this, or I'm a shoo-in for a position. And I went and spoke to my mentor at the time, and he basically looked at me and said, yeah, you're lucky that he didn't walk you out right then and there, because essentially what I did by comparing myself to those people and saying that I could do what they do better, which was probably false at that time too, most definitely false. And then it also attacked him. It also assaulted him and his decision-making skills as a program director. So I completely jumped out the window, put my foot in my mouth, all the cliches you can think of, and nearly committed career suicide early in the game. And so I say all that to say, and people don't tell you this, a lot of times young people don't get this kind of mentorship. They don't get people giving them jewels like that. Like, if you want to say you're the best, that's fine. Leave everybody else out of it. Don't bring anybody else. You don't want to do that. Just work on you, work on your product, show and prove what you can do. Point to that. Don't point to other people and compare yourself to them, because then you're just opening yourself up to, possibly getting run out of Twitter and, have a whole generation of folks looking at you sideways and not really wanting to support your music, because regardless of what they think, I think it behooves them to have support from everybody, from all age groups, and that participate and listen to hip hop. But that's on that.
And I think to that point, Sir Daniel, I think the goal for folks, for all of us, is to get that time behind us so that we can gain the wisdom, right?
Yeah,
so
yeah.
The hope is you get the opportunity for like an NBA young boy and a 21, that they get to have a career like a Nas, right? They get to that 30-year mark and say, wow, not only am I at 30, I'm still relevant at 30 years, right?
Absolutely.
So you want to get to that point. And so to that point, we are going to talk about gratitude on today's show through our conversation with our guests who are going to be coming up after in our next segment. But I wanted to bring up Nas because King's Disease 3 has been on repeat around these J Ray office streets. And so there's a lot of gems on this record. I'm actually enjoying listening to multi-millionaire, like older Nas rap. You know what I'm saying?
Yes.
Because I don't feel like he takes it for granted. And so I thought about the songs on the record and wanted to pull out lyrics from one of the songs that speaks to gratitude. One, the song is called Reminisce, and it includes a sample, interestingly enough, from Mary J. Blige's You Remind Me, not Reminisce, right? So, so it includes that sample, and some of the lyrics, this is actually part of a refrain. He says, I reached every goal that was high on the shelf. My comfort gives you discomfort. Just know that in the hood, they gonna bump this. And I'm only strong as my circle. The things that shaped me would have murked you. Like, just this idea of like, listen, I've been here. I have reached high highs. And it hasn't been easy. And just reflecting on the people that have also been part of that is really important. So, gratitude, y'all. The goal is to get to Nas's point, get to Nas's level.
My mother, as a child, used to say a West Indian saying, a Guyanese saying, "Wait, boy, you'll come." Like whenever I would complain about something, or make fun of somebody older or whatever, she'll be like, wait, boy, you'll come. Because you, at some point, if you're lucky, I always tell people, if you're lucky, you'll get to be my age. If I'm lucky, I'll get to be my mom's age, because consider the alternative. Because we all have friends that we've lost.
Yes.
And we consider the alternative that whether we like, we're flourishing basically in the lives that we have. And so I absolutely don't take that for granted. And so, I'm happy for the young people doing what they do, but I'm like you, I am super happy to see someone like Nas just live an example of what can be waiting for us on the other side of a certain age, especially if we just put that work in and do what we're supposed to do.
Absolutely. So listen, y'all, we're going to take a quick break. We're going to get a word from JB, and then we're going to come back and we are going to be joined by our guest for the day. So we will be right back.
Hey, what's happening? This is JB of JB's Record Lounge, and I want to give a quick shout out to Q Points, keeping our history and current events alive in Black music. Shout out to Sir Daniel and Jay Ray for making all of this possible. Come visit us at JB's Record Lounge, 898 Oak Street, Suite F, Atlanta, GA, anytime. We're open Wednesday through Sunday, noon to 6. Come see us for your vinyl fit.
That's right. We are back. You are listening to Q Points, dropping the needle on Black music history. I am DJ Sir Daniel.
And my name is Jay Ray. And we're about to have some folks join us.
We are, but real quick, before we bring on our guests, so we just saw JB. I just got the call from JB himself. Yours truly will be doing a set on Black Friday, which is this coming Friday. In regards to, it's also Record Store Day. So there's going to be a list of DJs doing sets come through to JB's at 898 Oak Street. Support small business, support Black business, and just come out and hear some great music and get you some vinyl, folks. And he doesn't just have vinyl. He has lots of other things there too, for the music lover in your life or for yourself. So with that being said, I am so ready to talk to these two right here.
Oh my God.
Yes, we got a lot to catch up on.
So I'm going to read their show bio, and I actually have an interesting connection to this show that we will talk about when we bring them on. But so in the spring of 2018, Ashli would meet the man who would change her life forever. As she slowly sauntered into her place of work, she came across Mashaun and looked curiously and eagerly into his eyes. She didn't know it then, but standing before her was the man who would become her greatest challenge and unexpected blessing. From that moment on, things would never be the same. And from that moment on, they would embark on a journey that would be a dream fulfilling opportunities. In that moment, B4Nine was born. B4Nine is all the things. And what does that mean? It's pretty simple. They are both complicated, but not so complicated creatives with opinions and perspectives that are unique and often shared by others afraid to express their points of view. They are both unapologetically Black and are not afraid to share their opinions and perspectives about all things Blackness, popular culture, relationships, sex, and identity. And it is with that we are going to bring on Ashli J. Washington and Mashaun D. Simon of B4Nine Podcast.
Welcome to the show. Yes. So, J. Ray, while you were reading that, it sounded like the synopsis of a really great rom-com.
It did. I was like, oh my God, this is like, what happens next?
Will they or won't they?
I'm like, but wait, Mashaun, you met me. How did I meet you? I was there first.
See? What had happened was,
tell us a little bit. You approved everything that went up on that website. So
there you go.
Listen, we need to update that. That must be from 2019, honey.
And you can say, and this is the kind of flavor you can get on the B4Nine podcast. But tell our audience, because we're familiar with your dopeness, but tell our audience all about B4Nine and how it came to pass and what they can expect on the show.
Go ahead, Ashley.
Okay, so Mashaun met me, first of all. We'll start there. But no, yeah, Mashaun and I used to work together, and the name of the show actually, I don't think it was in the bio, but the name of the show actually came about because we both would get to work B4Nine. And our friendship really developed in like that half hour to 45 minutes or so before everybody came to the office. He got there early and I would get there early. And we just like organically would have these rich, beautiful, deep, enlightening, vulnerable conversations in the morning, and it just bloomed. Our relationship and our friendship bloomed from there. And I know it was Mashaun's idea. I don't remember the exact conversation, but I'm sure it was Mashaun's idea to start a podcast. And yeah, we've been tight since then.
So she leaves out one little piece, and that's Ashley was used to getting there before everybody. And so when I started getting there earlier than her, it used to annoy her. She'd be like, what you doing so early? But yeah, like it very much, I just had this thought one day and I was like, we should do a podcast. Like we're having some very real, very authentic, very unique, very rich conversations. And other people should hear these things coming out of our mouths.
Yeah.
So I feel like this is a good time to talk about my connection to B4Nine the podcast.
Yep.
So when Mashaun was in, Mashaun actually came to me. So this is probably 2018, 2019 time frame, and wanted to talk to me about podcasting. And so the first season of B4Nine the podcast, I had the pleasure of producing with these folks. And I'm just like, one, y'all got all the lessons because y'all, they edited the show. They came into this with no experience doing that, was taught how to do it. I recorded the show, they edited the show, released the show, and now they're on season 3. So I'm just incredibly grateful that I got to be part of y'all launching this thing, and am happy that y'all are on your new season. But y'all took a break, so we need to talk about this break. So y'all took a hiatus. Tell us about what you did during the hiatus, and individually and collectively. What does B4Nine kind of want to say now after your break?
Well, it was an unexpected hiatus. Like let's start there. We got into this habit of, after everything that Johnny taught us, we were like, okay, we're ready to do this thing ourselves. And so we did season 2. We recorded season 2 all on our own. Most of it here in my home. And then pandemic. So I think Ashley had a COVID scare. Someone close to Ashley had a COVID scare.
Mm-hmm.
And so it caused us to think about how are we going to continue and in what ways could we continue. So we were very much on the fly. We were using all these websites that would record for us. We were calling each other on FaceTime while recording. It was this whole thing. And then we ended season 2 and we just never really set a date to come back for season 3. Like it was just like, okay, we're done with this. We're going to take a little break, just to sort of give us a chance to breathe. And took a while to come back.
2 years.
And so now when things like that happen, you know, J. Ray and I talk a lot about this. Like some podcasts, you know, they just don't come back. You know, they pop and then they shake and then they're out of there. Was there ever a moment where either of you were like, you know what? We did this. We were good at it. It was cute. You know, we got some stuff out of it. We did what we needed to do. Was there any consideration of not coming back?
We never talked about it, but I think it like things got so like busy. And to answer part of Johnny's, well, first of all, Johnny, thank you for like being there and being the foundation of B4Nine. You are
Yeah.
still at the heart of
Yeah.
B4Nine, and I feel like there wasn't an episode either on the record or before we started recording or after we started recording where we didn't speak your name and say like we miss Johnny. So just thank you so much for sewing into us in the way that you did. I will never forget that, and I know Mashaun will never forget that. So thank you so much. But I think so. We got busy. We got busy during the pandemic. To answer, your question, Sir Daniel, I was sewing. I sew. So I have an associate's degree in fashion design, and so I was sewing masks at the beginning of the pandemic. So maybe, well, not right at the beginning. Whenever the CDC was finally like, "Hey, y'all, wear some masks," which probably was like around April, May-ish. I was making masks nonstop. Like this space that I'm in right now was full of masks. I live with my best friend. I was teaching her how to make masks, and we was making them, sending them out, and so it got really busy then. And then just opportunities came up. I was, on a reality TV show at one point, and I started writing for the screen. And it just was like things just kept piling on top of each other. And of course, at the same time, Mashaun is still moving and doing things and creating. And so we never had a conversation about not coming back. We just weren't having a conversation at all. And then Mashaun, of course, was the first one to be like, okay, well, when are we going to start? And we were having that same conversation for at least 6 months. Mashaun, like, okay, like,
yeah.
It's literally like taking us probably almost a year to actually come back together and record something. And I'll leave it at that and let Mashaun answer.
I mean, yeah, and there was one point where we had a conversation, probably early 2021, and I remember vividly Ashli being like, "Okay, so I'm doing this, and you doing this, and so let's just see after this point." And so I think we waited a couple more months, and then we brought the conversation back up. But life just kept lifing. And so like things kept happening in our lives professionally, things kept happening in our lives personally. I lost several people in the midst of the pandemic, that it altered how I just even presented in the world. And so we couldn't make it work. We would meet, we would talk about it, and we would talk about what are we going to talk about when we come back. And it just wouldn't pop. But I think one of the things I appreciate is we ended up coming back when it was time to come back. And so the fact that we are now back recording, this is our first week of the new episodes. It happened when it needed to happen. And I think we both were just sort of leaning there. Like, we're not going to force it. There was a period of time we were forcing it because we almost had the opportunity to record somewhere else. And we worked so hard to make that thing work. And then we both were just like, why don't we just do what we always been doing? Like, let's just do that. It works for us. We know how to make it happen. And if and when the chance comes, then we'll make use of that space.
Go ahead, Sir Daniel.
So I was, it's all about timing, right? And I can't, just sitting here, just listening to you all talk, I just can't help but think of, this is like DC3, everybody is always asking, when are y'all gonna get together again? Y'all are making these solo appearances in the public, and we love that. But when is the group getting back together again? And this is like homecoming for you guys. The
this episode is up.
This is your Coachella. The new episode is up. I'm not gonna ask which one of you is the Beyonce. I think we know, but I'm not gonna ask. But no, but seriously, it's great to see you all back together. And being apart from each other, and still, but there's still support. There's y'all still supported each other even outside of the show because there's a relationship there. And we talked about gratitude earlier in the show, and it's like, what are you most grateful for in each other as partners on the show? Like, when you think about it, be like, you know what, I'm really glad Mashaun is my partner in this because, or I'm super grateful that Ashli is my partner in this because.
Oh wow, I feel like this is like a therapy session. This is good.
Yeah,
Hey.
it is. This is our couple counseling situation.
Right. I think I'm grateful for Mashaun in this partnership because of his commitment to it and how passionate he is about the show, about the podcast, and then the relationship too. He's great at building and maintaining great relationships with people. And that's a big part of the reason why our show is successful in the way that it is because we have that relationship. I'm not always super great at that. And so I think if Mashaun wasn't a part of this equation, if it was two of me, I don't know. But yeah, I'm really grateful for that.
Oh, thank you, Ashli. I mean, I am amazing, all those great things. And so, I get it. It's funny because in the episode we just recorded that's coming out in a few weeks, Ashli made this statement that I hadn't really considered. And Ashli was like, you're the prim and proper and scholarly one. And I'm like, I can't remember exactly what you said, but it was like, not exactly hood rap, but you were like, I'm a little more street or something like that. And so then we did this switch in the midst of the episode where she started talking proper because she says I'm all proper. And I was giving, 1, 2, 1, 3. And so I think that is one that I appreciate about our partnership is that like we fill the slots the best way we know how. But we play off of each other and feed off of each other so well. Like Ashli said earlier, we used to work together. And so even though we weren't doing the podcast anymore, we still were connected with each other through work. And if it were not for Ashli, I don't know how well I would have survived that space when we were there together because there was a lot happening in my life and that space took a lot out of me. And so I was having this really difficult time with work-life balance. And if it hadn't been for Ashli being there, I don't know if I would have been able to succeed the way that I did. And so the podcast is just an extension of that because we have this bond. We have this strong relationship. She's my sister. Her parents are my parents. We talk about this all the time.
Away from me.
Listen, I talked to Mama Washington just the other day.
She told me.
And so there's this very real, she is the sister I never had. And I can authentically be myself. She can authentically be herself. We learn from each other. We push each other. And we support each other in everything that we have going on together and separately. And I'm so very thankful for that.
So I think to that point, it's been a couple of years. What can people expect from this season of B4Nine, the podcast?
Mashaun, I'm gonna let you take that one.
Mashaun is so excited to talk about it. So Mashaun,
I mean, so there's an interesting thing happening with the season so far, which is why I'm excited. So we came in with these ideas of what we were going to do for this season, all of these topics, et cetera, and it has changed on the dime. Like we came in with a whole season laid out, and yet I think we recorded half of that season so far, and only two of the things we planned is what has come out in the season. So we're like, okay, let's just roll with it, which is what happened. Like season 1 was plotted out, and we had these topics and themes that we lived into. Season 2 was very off the cuff. Season 2 was very, what's going on now? What's happening? What do we want to talk about? Season 3 seems to be a mix of the two. Just the other day, I sent Ashley a message about this guy's rant on TikTok about what Black men should be talking about on podcasts. And Ashley was like, well, I guess we need to talk about some of these things too. And I was like, I guess we do. And so it's just a mixture of all things. See, that first episode was very much a what have we been up to during the break. Episode 2, we do this thing called 9 questions that apparently everyone loves. And so we did a whole episode on 9 questions. We're talking about Honk for Jesus, Save Your Soul. We're gonna bring in guests this season in a different kind of way. Ashley made me do half of a show talking about Renaissance. Like made me talk about it.
Yeah.
So
and that's
like,
so fun.
Go ahead.
No. Finish your thought. Go ahead. Finish.
I was just saying, like it, and so that's just sort of what's coming out of it. It's very much what's going on. What do we care about? What do we need to talk about? And what's going to be fun and entertaining all at the same time.
Well, entertaining. You two are definitely entertaining.
Yes.
Together and apart, because I don't know, for those of you that are watching this broadcast, there's a bodice figure behind Ashley, and on top of that bodice figure is a hat, is a crown. And the significance, if I'm not mistaken, that's the same crown that was featured in a viral video of Ashley doing her good old lip sync of Queen Latifah's "Ladies First."
Yes.
And I mean, she had the suit, the power suit.
She had it down.
It was down. And you know me, if as the resident historian, female rap historian, I can tell you that was very accurate in your portrayal. The lip sync was on point, and on Q Points, we're gonna drag you into a music conversation because that's what we do. And topics. So the topic had come up. J. Ray and I talk about stuff like this all the time. The topic came up from Rolling Stone. Had this article came out about the top 50 greatest concept albums of all time, and we've looked at the list. We started talking. I threw out something. J. Ray was like, nah, I don't think so. We started disagreeing already on one thing. So speaking of Queen Latifah, I brought up the fact that I thought that Black Rain was a concept album of Queen Latifah, and J. Ray was like, I can see where you're going, but no. Right. So I think where we'll go first is we'll look at what is a concept album according to like Rolling Stone, or and we'll go from there. But we're talking about this article regarding the top 50 greatest concept albums of all time, and B4Nine crew, we wanted y'all to chime in on this as well. But J. Ray, what's the definition of a concept album?
Okay, so the definition of a concept album is actually pretty straightforward. So Rolling Stone loosely defines it as thematic albums tied together by specific moods or interconnected songs. That is very important when I went back and I looked at their list, because some stuff was on their list and I was like, no, that's not what we're talking about here. But based on what they define a concept album as, it makes sense. But 2 things I want to bring up. Oxford. This is very interesting because there's some racism afoot.
Oh.
Oxford defines concept album as a rock album featuring a cycle of songs expressing a particular theme or idea. So that was very interesting to me. And I'm going to tell you how they got there. So in the history of concept albums, most people land on the Beatles' Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band as the first concept album ever released. But what's interesting about that, I actually found some research. I was like, that can't be true. That just doesn't make sense. And there's a reason why it doesn't make sense, because it's not completely true. In modern rock history, yes, Sgt. Pepper's, the Beatles, it makes sense. But actually, there's this really good article, it's actually from Ultimate Guitar, that talks about really the first concept album being this album by Woody Guthrie. And I went and I listened to it. It's a total concept album. It was called the Dust Bowl Ballads. And he was telling these stories about the Dust Bowls coming through and then breaking down all these different things. And it actually ended up being like 3 albums, you know, over a period of time. But that was kind of a concept album. But so I kept going and I was like, well, let me find the black people. Like, what's the first black concept album? We Q points over here. When's the black album coming?
Come on, let's get
so.
Yes.
This particular article raised up Miles Davis's Porky and Bess as a concept album, and I had never thought of that record as a concept album before. And that's mainly because, you know, of course, there's an opera theater, you know, production of that. Mm-hmm. But what Miles did, and I didn't realize this until researching for this show, is he and Bill Evans took what Gershwin did, rearranged it into this whole other thing. So it is actually a concept album where he took the concept of Porky and Bess and spun it in a completely different way and created something that was not only different, it was really transformative for what jazz was doing at the time. So it was a concept album. So if we're going to pinpoint the first black concept album, we will probably end up landing at Miles Davis's Porky and Bess. And that was 1958 as the first concept album. So Rolling Stone did this list. I looked at the list. I was like, oh, this is cute. Mm-hmm. I was more concerned with number 1. Like, I thought number 1 was going to like make me mad. And so I'm curious to what y'all think. But I think one of the things they got right, I think their number 1 is really solid. Like, their number 1 is Kendrick Lamar's Good Kid, Mad City concept album from top to bottom. It has a story. Yeah. You get a beginning. You know the characters. You know his mama, his daddy is in the thing. You know his friends are in the thing. You know he going to see Shireen. He need to stop going to talk to that fast girl Shireen. We know that story because it's a concept. Mm-hmm. And shout out to that record, because 2022, that record celebrated 10 years on the Billboard 200. It's been on the Billboard 200 since it was released.
Wow.
It has never left. So, yeah. So one of the things I think they got right was, I think Kendrick's Good Kid, Mad City is a brilliant concept album. It explains what concept albums are. So I'm curious to know from y'all, like, what did they get right?
I would say Lemonade was also on that list. And let me backtrack. I'm gonna just go ahead and be authentic and transparent in that I didn't know, I had never heard the term concept album before, you know, we got our talking points and notes for the show. And so, of course, I guess I'm going through the list. I was going through Rolling Stone's list. I was like, okay, this makes sense. This makes sense. Okay, I see this. I can see this. And I think I wasn't aware that it was like this whole thing, because I feel like as a millennial, I'm 35. I just turned 35 a week ago. And I think that, like, we didn't get a lot of these growing up. I feel like obviously music has changed a lot in the last 3.5 decades. But I think when I was at the point of actually like figuring out what my music tastes were and what I liked and what I didn't like, I feel like there weren't a lot of concept albums, black concept albums, certainly during that time when I was growing up. And so back to the number 1, back to Kendrick, when I was thinking about concept albums, I thought about, and it's not really, but kind of, and I guess it's kind of obvious because it's a soundtrack, but thinking about the first Black Panther the music that was inspired by Black Panther, which Kendrick Lamar obviously was heavily involved in that project, and how the album was kind of split into two. So like one side was T'Challa, the other side was Killmonger, and it had two very different vibes. But then there was also like a story threaded through each of those. It was kind of like an A side and a B side. One side had more like global vibes, the other side was more like California, Oakland, vibes, and kind of told the story of Killmonger in particular. So I thought it was interesting that Kendrick Lamar, and I mean, he's just an incredible artist, in my opinion, just generally. But yeah, so that album, obviously, and then Lemonade, of course, is, again, Beyonce. But just really, Lemonade was and is, when we had our conversation, when Mashaun had our conversation about Lemonade, or about Beyonce and Renaissance, Lemonade came up, and he admittedly was like, I fooled with that album. And, it did tell a story. The visual part obviously made that very clear. But if you just listen to the album, it's obviously a concept, and a great one, a heartbreaking one at that. So
I knew you was gonna bring up that conversation. I was like, watch, she gonna come up with me saying something like she gonna try in public to be like, Mashaun likes Beyonce. Hold on, that's not what I said. We got it on record, but no, seriously. It was interesting. So slightly, I think I had an idea of concept albums because I grew up in the Michael Jackson, Janet Jackson age.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember very vividly at some point in my younger years, I didn't have the language of concept album, but I had the language of, oh, there's a theme here.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a theme throughout the entire project. That's interesting because I had never experienced it that way in any of the other music I had listened to. So I was surprised to not see some things on that list, like Janet's Velvet Rope,
Mm-hmm.
which I think is in my top 4, if you will, of best concept albums. I was surprised not to see anything from MJJ because several of his projects were very concepty. There is an album that I want to say Marvin Gaye did for a movie that wasn't on there, and I was really surprised
Trouble
by
Man.
that. Trouble Man, that's what it is. I was very surprised to not see that. But then again, I was like, as a semi journalist, I know how some of these things go. So I was like, I should not be surprised that there's some things missing. I was a little surprised to see Kendrick Lamar at number 1. Of course, I was like, for sure it's gonna be in the top 5, but number 1 I was really surprised by, just because journalism, and racism, and I was surprised to see Jasmine Sullivan's Hotels on there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But I was like, yeah, this is a very solid project. I was surprised not to see Velvet Rope on there, from Janet Jackson. I was very, very surprised by that, but not surprised to see Control. So, yeah, it was interesting engaging that list, and seeing like some of the stuff from Marvin Gaye that was on the list, to see Millie Jackson on that list, to see Donna Summers on that list. I was like, oh, okay, this is really interesting. So
yeah, it's like when Rolling Stone got it right, they got it right.
yeah.
But when they fumbled. Like,
They
to your
banged.
point. So to your point about Control being on the list, it was so glaring to me and J-Ray. We were like, no, not Control. Rhythm Nation 1814 is a whole ass concept album. There's a whole movie, a video movie about Rhythm Nation 14, where there's a storyline, the education and drugs and all of that. All of that is examined and expressed throughout that whole album. The first side is dedicated to all of those things that I mentioned. So I was like, hold up, y'all put Control, and I get it. not Control. To me, Control is a bop album.
Yeah,
like
it
back
is.
to back bops. But Rhythm Nation 1814 to me should have been on that list as far as a concept album through and through. Even the album is black and white. The videos were black and white. Visually, everything that happened with that album meshed together to complete this whole concept. And as you were talking, I was also surprised that Outkast and their Speaker Box Love Below album was left off of that because it's not just a double album. That is a concept album.
Yeah.
It's very much a concept album. And if you think about it, maybe A Criminal could have been a concept album as well, listed for Outkast. And I was also surprised not to see, and I think I mentioned this to you, J. Ray, and you kind of like were on the fence about it, but Sparkle, written by Curtis Mayfield, and Aretha Franklin, of course, singing all the tunes on there. To me, I don't know, maybe soundtracks are kind of like a cheat. Soundtracks are a cheat code because it's a movie. And so, yes, there is a concept behind it. But I think that album still goes to this day and people still purchase it like it was made yesterday. So I think that was a glaring omission to me as well. Now, what they did get right, I did see Janelle Monáe's Archandroid on there. Total concept album. But if you look at her whole discography, all concept albums.
All concept albums.
Her coming out as the Archandroid, as Cindy Mayweather, and her half human, half android concept. The whole thing, all concepts, and maybe Archandroid was like at the top of her superpowers, but black musicians, we got the concept album game on lock. There's plenty that we have on there.
Yeah, like I was excited to your point, Sir Daniel, see all the blackness that was on the list, because sometimes this could go left. I was like, child, I don't know. But they actually did do a really good job. I will say that I definitely agree that I think the most glaring thing that was missing was Rhythm Nation not being on this list at all. I was like, that just don't make no sense to me. I was like, I would have just replaced Control with Rhythm Nation. But and so to that point, I think that is my favorite concept album that's not on the list. Is Rhythm Nation. And that's probably this hard. That's crazy. So Janet, by the way, so I think we all know this, but for those who are listening, for the most part, Janet's classic period, which is the 4 albums, the 4 Control, Rhythm Nation, Janet, and the Velvet Rope. Janet's classic period. All concept albums. Like Janet actually flourished in that whole area of like, she had a story to tell, and okay, well, I'm gonna just use the album to tell the story. Because to Mashaun's point, I was like, oh shoot, like the Velvet Rope ain't on here either. And so interesting. But I think my favorite that's missing, that they got wrong, is Rhythm Nation. And Sir Daniel, you mentioned a record too that wasn't on the list.
So hip hop, I just started thinking about all the hip hop concept albums, and there are quite a few.
A lot.
There are quite a few hip hop concept albums that maybe we need to do our own list because because it's just left out of the greater conversation. But the score isn't mentioned by the Fugees,
which is weird that the score is not on there.
That the score is not on there. Miseducation is not on there because the classroom concept. But my favorite concept album is Diggable Planet's Blowout Cone, which was their second and final studio album.
So good.
It's like a blaxploitation flick it reminded me of like those old school blaxploitation flicks that you saw on TV on Sunday morning, the commercials, the musical flares in between, the concept of wait, how do they put it?
Was that blackatopulation?
Blackadalism. Instead of capital,
right?
Instead of capitalism. Yes. So there was that whole. It was very much the fist with the afro, and very much that on the power tip. And I sat with that album. I remember from when it came out in the fall of '94 to that following spring, because it was my freshman year. Was it freshman year at Georgia State? So I just remember all of those things happening at the same time, and carrying that with me, that cassette everywhere I was, and it just informed a lot of that time period for me. And it was truly a concept album. But before you two, before B4Nine crew, before y'all tell us your favorite concept albums, I want to stir the pot a little bit. What's the 411 or My Life concept albums? Are they concept albums, or is one more a concept album than the other? Because I truly have my opinion about that.
Yeah, I have an opinion about this. My Life would be the concept album, I think.
Okay.
What's the 411?
We're talking about Mary J. Blige. For those who
may
not know,
baby, if you're listening to this show and don't know,
living under a rock,
right? If you listen to this show and don't know who did those records,
who's Mary J. Blige again?
Right.
Okay, exactly. Come forward to the altar. Come to the altar.
Go listen to our Mary J. Blige show.
So yes.
What have I heard from her?
Ashli and J. Ray. Right. Wait for Mashaun to catch up.
She is the queen of hip hop soul. Anyway, okay. So My Life, to answer your question, I think squarely My Life would be the concept album of those two records, because there is a through line. There's the beginning and the end, and there's a through line between each song. I think What's the 411? Yeah, it's not cohesive enough as a theme, I think, to be a concept. But My Life was conceived that way. Like, it was conceived to be Mary talking about her life in that moment. So that's why I would consider that to be the concept album.
I agree with Johnny. 100%. And I like, it's so interesting looking at the list and then hearing some of the albums that you all are mentioning. It's like a lot of it I didn't listen to My Life until I was like a freshman maybe in college, which was 2009. Mm-hmm. So it's like I was listening to it. I mean, when did that come out? It was sometime in the 90s, I know.
Yeah, 95, 94, 95, 94.
Mm-hmm. Almost 15 years after the album, was released. And I felt like I was, I guess womanly enough to listen to it at that time. And I felt like, okay, I'm going to listen to this. And yeah, absolutely My Life is the concept album for sure.
So full disclosure, I have never heard What's the 411 all the way through.
Really? Okay. Go play that record. That record that's a time capsule. It's a time capsule.
I have it. Mm-hmm. I have it, but I've never listened to it all the way through. My Life, I have listened to all the way through. But so My Life is a concept. Of those two, My Life is a concept. But I think my entryway to Mary was through Share My World initially. Mm-hmm. And then I ended up going back. So Share My World has always been the one that really spoke to me, but it caused me to go back and listen to what had come before it. And that's very much a concept one to me as well. But of the two, My Life. I mean, yeah, My Life is the concept one.
Share my world.
Yeah.
And so Ashli, when you said, I guess I was woman enough to listen to My Life, that made me change my mind, because I was going in this thinking What's the 411 was definitely a concept album, because technically it had the voicemail. It was the first of the albums to ever do the voicemail thing, where people were leaving their voicemails, their messages to Mary J. Blige, and it automatically, if you grew up in the 90s, hearing the outgoing message, the incoming message, the beep beeps, and all of that, it puts you in that place, in that time and space, and you can hear the progression. Yeah, the nostalgia, and you can hear the progression of the songs, the searching for real love, so on and so forth. But I think the mark of iconic album, a legendary album, a concept album, is just what you said, Ashley. If any woman, especially a Black woman, can pick up that album at a particular age in her life and time and listen to it, and it still speaks to her, no matter what her age, between the time the album came out and the time wherever she listens to it, is what makes that an iconic concept album. So you are in fact correct.
Absolutely. And
Ashley always gonna ride for the Black women. So
always. That's what we do over here at Q Points too. Like, that is one of the reasons why I think The Velvet Rope holds up. That is a start to finish record. Like, just play it and let it go. We have our special need to just let it go. You're going to get something every time. Like, you're going to get something every time.
True.
That is the mark.
Honorary mention, on the TLC tip. Because when you think, to me, because of the messaging, there was nothing else like it. Completely turned everything upside down as far as the way they presented the album. Like I said, the through line of independence, responsibility, sexual responsibility, which was something that was, if you look at it, it was the antithesis of BBD, Velvet DeVoe, and their album.
It was the other side, yep.
And here's TLC saying, hey, we like to get down too, but you're not just going to smack it up, flip it, rub it down. Not only are you going to respect me, I probably do want to do you as much as you want to do me, but guess what? You need to put these condoms on. And they spoke openly about condoms. And so that was a through line throughout that whole album to me. So I just wanted to throw that out there.
That's so funny. I have not listened to that album in, I don't even know the last time. It plays on, it's a staple on classic R&B radio. So I hear, songs from that album. I mean, Baby was just on like the other day. And I was singing. I was singing my whole life in that car. Cause I guess I hadn't heard it in a while, but I was, doing a whine and the whole thing. But, okay. I'm gonna go back and listen to on the TLC tip. But there's another, as we wind this down, I think the other thing that this list reminded me of, to Sir Daniel's earlier point, is how many hip hop concept albums there are. Master Ace is just, and we've talked about this, Sir Daniel.
Yes,
Master Ace is the apex of his career, is like these concept albums. Like when I think of like Disposable Arts and like A Long Hot Summer, these were underground hip hop concept albums that have like whole scripts. There's like acting on the record, like it's a whole thing. But don't necessarily make it onto lists like this, because lists like this are like pulling from all the different genres. So it might be something in Q Points pulling together.
Absolutely. Because how could we leave her out? Missy Elliott is the queen of concept albums.
Yeah, she is. That whole second record. Yeah, you're absolutely right.
So we might have to do our own list, J. Ray.
We might have to do our own. Oh my God, we got to listen to so many records. But this is where we come up with. But the way that Rolling Stone does it, so Ashley, Mashaun, is you get a whole group of people that weigh in to help you to get through it all, right? To help you to figure out, so to bring things to the table and to help us figure out what we're missing. So for those of y'all that are listening too, if y'all want to be down with helping Q Points for 2023 figure out our concept album list, hit us up. But thank y'all for like participating in this conversation.
This
Thank
is
y'all.
fun.
And like being here with us, and we just so happy that y'all are back. Like, yeah, like hearing y'all voices, it was fun. Y'all got new theme music, I know that.
We back.
Y'all got new theme music and stuff. Like, y'all ready.
Hey.
It's a bop too.
It's
a bop. Some other friends of ours, friends you all know, were messaging me that they listened to the first episode, and both of them were like, "Oh my gosh, we love this new theme music. It's such a vibe." And so, shout out to Samir Duncan for really helping us to fulfill the dream that we had season 1.
Mm-hmm.
And we talk about this in the episode. Like, I was just very much like, okay, let's get this done. And so we settled on something that was good, but it wasn't exactly what we wanted. And Samir Duncan came in with the save for season 3, and that music is, I sit in here sometimes just listen to it. Like, I just listen to the tracks. Like, it's so good. It's so good. So, yeah.
So, question. So, where can people catch up with B4Nine? Where can they find y'all on the socials and all of that?
Oh, Mashaun, you're cueing me. Okay, so you can find us at on Instagram at B4Nine Podcast, and then we also are on Facebook at B4Nine Podcast. I think that's it, right? We just have Facebook and Instagram.
You can find us online, B4NinePodcast.com.
There we go. Come on.
That's in the chat. So we got that. We're gonna put that in the description. And make sure, because we want the people to be listening. Make sure that y'all subscribe to B4Nine the podcast everywhere, wherever you listen to podcasts. Get on over on Good Pods. We love some Good Pods over here at the Q Points, so that everybody can know that y'all are listening to B4Nine the podcast. So when I go in to listen this week, I'm gonna be doing it in Good Pods, so all my people on Good Pods can know that I'm listening to B4Nine.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes. New episodes every Monday morning. New episode coming out next Monday, episode 2, 9 questions.
I love the 9 questions, by the way. So y'all did that during that season 1. That was always so fun. Sir Daniel, that's giving me an idea. Like, we've never done like a 9 questions sort of thing on this show. That might have to be
y'all should do
a thing.
Y'all
that will
do
be
it.
super fun. Like a music related one. That'd be fun.
I'm down for it. You don't have to twist my arm. Let's do it. And so the same, J-Ray, I'm going to point to you like how Mashaun pointed at Ashli, and say, run down the way of how people can keep in contact with Q Points and subscribe to the show.
Absolutely. So listen, y'all, make sure that you pop on over to our website, qpoints.com. That thing be thangin' over on qpoints.com. We refreshed our members only site this week. So we got it updated with content. We got it updated with all types of stuff. So definitely the website is where you want to be to get all the things. That said, if you are like, I really love these guys, I want to support them, you can leave us a tip. You can leave us a tip over on Patreon. It's all good. That's just like, hey, we just want to put a little bit on your books, just so you know. If you want to support us even more deeply, you could subscribe and become a monthly subscriber, where you can get access to all of our back catalog, as well as all of our exclusive content, including However Comma, where I do be cussing over there. And it's an adventure.
It's an adventure, folks.
It is. But you can subscribe to us on Apple Podcasts and on Spotify. And make sure that you leave us a rating and a review in each of those places. And last but not least, if you are watching this show and you are not on YouTube, you should go on over to YouTube and you should subscribe and hit the bell notification so you get updated on all things Q Points. Boom.
That's right.
Next week, Sir Daniel is going to be spinning for Beta Gamma Chi's Code Red. It's their World AIDS Day celebration. And so you should RSVP over at betagammachi.org so y'all can come and hang out with Sir Daniel, who's going to be giving the kids the music on November 30th.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Absolutely. That'll be a great way to bring in the World AIDS Day celebration. And speaking of concepts, the flavor I'm bringing, just to give you a little clue, is going to be, you're going to be hearing from artists. You're going to hear songs that spoke to the epidemic at the time. People, maybe a couple of people who have succumbed to the epidemic, but it's just going to be a retrospect of what music stood for in response to the AIDS epidemic. So I'm looking forward to that. Shout out to Beta Gamma Chi for reaching out to us. Like, man, I'm super, 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 super proud to be a part of that. But J Ray, what do I always say at the end of every show? First of all, thank you, Mashaun. Thank you, Ashli. We really appreciate you taking the time out of your busy schedules to play with us and have a good time here with us on Q Points. J Ray, I am super thankful for you as my partner on this show for
and
making
I'm thankful
these
for
things.
you, man.
We have a great time over here because what do I always say every week? In this life, you have a choice. You can either pick up the needle or you could let the record play. I am DJ Sir Daniel.
And my name is J Ray, y'all. Who
And
y'all?
this has been Q Point. Oh.
Who y'all? Tell them who you
y'all
is.
too?
I'm Ashli J. Washington, the one and only.
And I am Mashaun D. Simon.
And this is Q Points, dropping the needle on Black music history. We'll see you next time. Peace.